answer. I'll do a little bit of an introduction about my role and about the state of transitions in clergy. And then I'd love to open it up for some questions, and then we'll do a teaching and a little conversation to wrap up. So we'll be here for about an hour together. Feel free to get up, go to the bathroom, leave if you have to, get snacks, do whatever you need. Don't feel trapped. So, again, my name is Jessie, and I'm Canon of the Ordinary, which is, I described this, and I described it last time I was here. A canon is someone who works closely with the bishop, and the ordinary in my title refers to the bishop, who's the one that we elected to keep the order. And so I help her keep the order. That's what my title means, which means I help with the order of clergy transitions that happen and congregational transitions. I'm the chief of our diocesan staff of about 20 people. I also help on those less good days with clergy discipline and other things like that, other parts of keeping the order like that. So that's my role, and I'm coming up on a year and a half in it, and so I'm starting to feel less lost every day. When I entered this role, which was right when Bishop Ann began as our bishop in diocesan last summer, 2 summers ago now, there was an unprecedented amount of turnover in the clergy, and largely that was due to people of the boomer generation retiring, which we have seen all across every industry. Nurses have this, teachers have this. It was that great retirement, and then we haven't quite had the pipeline to fill in the gap of what we've had in retirements. So soon after I started, we have 80 congregations in our diocese, which is a relatively large diocese in the Episcopal Church, and we had 20 congregations in transition, which was a lot. And the good part of that is that when there is a big sea change, there's an opportunity for a broad, wide scale cultural transition. And things are possible that are not possible when you have like one off. But your mission area, your Northeast mission area, is going to be almost entirely different than it was 5 years ago by the end of this period, which is scary and sad and exciting. So it's all those things. We have filled a lot of the positions. I mentioned in my sermon, and I mention everywhere I go, about this clergy shortage. We are working on ways to address that. We have lots of people who are discerning to become clergy, priests or deacons. So that's one way. We're also doing more partnerships where churches are sharing clergy, so that's another way we're addressing it. We are hopeful that you all will be able to find a clergy person, and that the clergy shortage, it might mean it will take a little bit longer, but you'll be able to find someone, because that is what we're seeing across the diocese. There isn't a place we haven't found a priest yet for. So just take some more time sometimes, and I know that Kitty has shared some of this with you, when you might have received 15 applications before, now we're seeing 2 or 3 is typically what we see, but all you need is one. So we will work to find the right one. So that's a little bit of a primer on the state of transitions. It's a really exciting time to be coming to the Diocese of Ohio. Bishop Ann has brought energy. She is known throughout the church for the ways that she's thinking about church differently, which is very similar to how our presiding bishop, Sean Rowe, is thinking about church. So we're in line, which is good, in line with the presiding bishop. And I'm very hopeful and excited about some of the upcoming clergy announcements we have to make. So there's good energy. People want to come to this diocese, and I'm hopeful about that. That's my very quick intro, and now I'd like to open it. Actually, before I open it, can you raise your hand if you're on the search committee? Like, I want to take this in. Okay. Please don't run away today, because I kind of want to circle around with you. Please raise your hand if you are on vestry or about to be on vestry. Thank you. Okay, great. We'll give you a job when you're on vestry. Great. Wonderful. That's helpful for me, and also hopefully for you to know who those people are that are representing your church more broadly. So I'll open it for any questions that you all might have about the search process, if you have any questions about it.
When I was doing had for a short time to the senior board. We had an applicant came in out of state, and she was willing, but the husband made it. Now, are you going to run into this sort of thing?
So the question is, it's a recounting of another time when a priest was interested but the spouse was not. That's it's just unfortunately life, isn't it? Like it takes two to make those big moves or big transitions happen.
We never have to know.
Yeah. Bless you on the continuation of those. I cannot say the same for mine. Yeah.
Could you just give it like a super quick overview of the process and timeline?
Yeah, so I will say, I will share it and also say that there's flexibility in it. So the process typically is that you would be in a period of self-study where you would be putting together materials for a profile and be putting together what you want to present to the wider church. This is a traditional way to do it, and that's what it would look like, and you would post that. We post it on the job boards because we know where clergy are looking. Everyone applies, and the applications come to me for every church, not just St. Christopher, but every church. They come to me, and the reason for that is that I do an initial reference check with my counterpart to make sure there's no misconduct or something that's not misconduct, but getting close to misconduct that we do not want in Gates Mills. So I do that initial check. And then I would give you the candidates that your search committee would interview, typically once on Zoom, and then bringing someone here. If you've been on a search committee before, you may have flown to go see the priests where they are. That's not practiced so much anymore because it's a little tricky to go undercover as churches are smaller. Oh, what are you doing visiting our church? Trying to steal your priest. Yeah, so we don't do that so much. Some places do. But the other piece is you can watch people on Zoom now. And so much of what you would be looking for, you get over Zoom. So you do the interview process, and then the search committee says, this is who we have found to the vestry. We recommend this person to be the next clergy person. The vestry then calls that person and offers the position after speaking with the bishop. And that's it in very short form, what it might look like. There's another option where a priest in charge, and I believe, is that what happened with Mother Ann?
Yeah.
I thought so. There's another option where the bishop can be more involved and shorten that initial search part, where the bishop can say, I have a priest that I think is the right priest for you, and kind of short circuits that piece. So that's another option that could be part of the search, which would shorten that. As far as timeline, it really varies. Typically we say 18 months from when your priest left until another one would begin, 18 months to 2 years sometimes. But that varies. So it's helpful to know, and you're experiencing this. It's not a super quick process. And partially that is by design, to let you all figure out who you are without Mother Ann as your priest, and who you want to be next. And that's what this period is for. Thank you for that. Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Father Richard.
Isn't he great?
We are really blessed to have him be our secretary. So
He also loves you, so it's
that's so nice. So looking at the newsletter, it looks like there are, even just within our basic neighborhood, most everybody is looking for somebody.
Yeah.
So are there things that that we should, to be realistic, that you can say from knowing a lot, what would be attractive to somebody about St. Christopher's, and what are the things that we should realistically understand would be things that would be less attractive to somebody?
Yeah. So Leslie's question, if you didn't hear it, or looking at the landscape, and much of your neighborhood is in transition, your Episcopal Church neighborhood is, although there are some announcements coming soon, so soon that will be less true. What is attractive about St. Christopher's, and what might you want to be aware of as you pitch yourselves to your next partner in ministry? So as I've already been talking about St. Christopher's with people in the church as I go to regular discernment/recruiting events where I'm looking for priests, and I go to those, so I've been talking about St. Christopher already. Your location is amazing. You feel like you are in a totally different world, and yet you're like 5 minutes from a big hospital and lots of, you're really close to Cleveland. It is an asset to be close to the cathedral, and you guys are. So those are some of the things. You all are you're a healthy congregation. That's not a given in the church, but you're healthy. You have worked through conflict in your past, and you're stronger on this side of it. And you have good lay leadership. You have a deacon, which is an asset. When I look at congregations, I'm like, yay, there's a deacon.
Yeah.
So it's a good sign.
Yeah.
It's a good sign about the church's health and their outreach, and that's something that I know you all have done together is build into that. So I think to the right person who is interested in this kind of lifestyle of that Gates Mills would offer, it's really attractive. What I'm finding as I talk with priests is the rectory asset can go either way. And that's where the spouse partner piece comes in. I have a husband who, we lived in a rectory once, and he never wants to do it again. And it wasn't actually a bad experience, but it's just, he was like, I've already given so much to the church, I don't really want to live next to it. Like, so that's just honest. So some people, that's a harder sell. Other people, it's a relief. They're like, oh good, I don't have to find housing, especially in Gates Mills, I don't have to find housing. So that can go either way. One of the pieces that I think will be interesting for you all is your size. You're a border size. You are a larger, you might not feel like this, but you are a larger congregation in our diocese. And you've grown some over recent years in your average Sunday attendance. And so you are going to attract a certain type of priest that wants a larger community, but you're not like a program-sized, big, multi-staff church. So you're in a little bit of a pocket of your attendance, which as I've talked to priests, that's come up. So of like, well, it's not a small church, it's not a big church. I think that's very attractive. So again, it could go either way. I think those are my initial thoughts. I wonder if anybody else has anything to add. Yeah.
I just, not to add, can I
Okay.
ask another question?
Oh, sure. Yes.
What is the likelihood, because of the small number of people that are looking for positions, what is the likelihood that someone might want to look at, St. Martin's, St. Hubert's,
Yeah.
whatever, St. Paul's,
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
so that I look at that as a really good thing, because
Yeah.
if someone else doesn't call them, we could.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And that is working out to be true. Because once a priest and his or her family has identified that they are interested in moving here, it can be easy to talk them into, so I want to be clear. I don't skim candidates from you when they apply. I don't do that. I will present them to you as that happens. But if you say no, then I will promptly say, well, St. Martin's is looking. So that I think it is an asset. It's worked out to our favor so far in a way I wasn't expecting. That you would have multiple folks, and then we get to know each other, and they get to know the diocese, and then they might be here. I'll also say, and you guys know this probably, but you are very different. Every church is so different, and it's a fit thing, if personalities match. And you guys had such a good match with Mother Ann. You know what that feels like. And you're really different from St. Martin's, and you're really different from St. Hubert's, because you're all unique. And I do think, I'll keep saying it, but you have a warmth about you that I think makes you unique.
Yes.
Yes, Deacon Lydia confirms. And that's the gift of being able to move around, like deacons and diocesan staff can do sometimes, is move around and see that perspective. And you are special in that way. And I think you will find hopefully someone who has that similar warmth, like Mother Ann did, but and the next person who has that and sees it in you.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but we did look at some of the profiles put out by other churches. And
Yeah.
if you've never been on the committee, there are these beautiful booklets that
Yeah.
try to entice people to come. And hey, we have these great sports teams so close, and they're shopping. I mean, it's, so put on your smiles for future pictures to be taken. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Right, any other questions before we talk about the next piece? Yes.
Just generally, where do you, from your perspective, where are we?
Where are you? That's a great question. And where are you in the search? I want to make sure I actually, so you are in the very, very beginning of the search still. And that's, if we can have a quick search team huddle afterwards, I want to talk about that a little bit. But you are still in that period of preparing yourselves to put yourselves out there for that profile and posting stage. So you're still in the very, very beginning. All right, so I wanted to share with you, and you feel free to keep asking questions. How many people have heard of the College for Congregational Development? One hand, two hands, three hands. Okay, so I'll start there. So the College for Congregational Development came out of the Diocese of Olympia, way out west, and it started about 10 and 15 years ago as a way to teach congregations and their leaders, clergy or lay, about how to have healthier, more effective, more sustainable congregations where they are, wherever they are. And Bishop Ann took part in this program several years ago. She was a trainer in it. She would travel and teach other leaders about how to be faithful, healthy, and effective. And she has brought this to our diocese. And so if you are interested, it's a week-long program over 2 summers. It's at Bellwether. How many people have been to Bellwether in this room? Ooh, let's work on that. Let's get more people to Bellwether from St. Christopher's. It's a beautiful, beautiful farm. Maybe an hour and a half from here, an hour?
Hour and 15.
Hour and 15 minutes. It's a farm in the Wakeman, Ohio, and we have a new executive director who's fabulous. So the program, the College for Congregational Development, will be this August. And we encourage you to send teams of people, because at the end of the week, you get together and you pick a project that you want to do for St. Christopher's to somehow take ministry to the next step, whether it's through your greeter ministries or through your pastoral care or through adding a worship service or taking away a worship service. It's whatever you want to do. And this is a model. It's a series of models in the College for Congregational Development that you do over two summers. And I took part in it in 2003 and 2023 and 2024. And it was personally transformative for me to go through this. I didn't really know what congregational development meant. And I've been a priest for like 10 years and I didn't actually know what that term meant until I did this. And it's all about how to strengthen your congregation. This is a particular model, a lens through which to look at your congregation. And I've been teaching this with every congregation in transition. The reason is it's a helpful snapshot of what it's like to move through a life cycle in a congregation. It gives you a sense of where you all think you are, and it gives me a sense of where you think you are. So I'm going to teach this model very briefly, and then I'm going to ask you to engage with it by coming up here and putting your dots up here. So that's just a couple steps ahead about this. So this comes out of organizational development. So if you've ever been in business or anything that talks about organizational development, this is where this comes from, and we've adapted it through the College for Congregational Development for congregations. This could apply to a ministry, or it could apply to a relationship. And in this case, we're going to apply it to a congregation, yours. And so every congregation has a birth story. It begins at birth with your origin of why, and I actually don't know your origin really at all. Sometimes I look that up in the archives before I come, but I didn't have a chance this week. But why were you planted here on this gorgeous river next to this beautiful bridge? What is that story of why your founders, some of whom might be connected to your families, why you were put here? And that forms the DNA of who you were and who you are today. We talk about this a lot at the diocesan level. We were the first diocese founded outside of 13 colonies. And so we have this frontier, innovative spirit in us. And that's what drew Bishop Ann to us, because we've been on the cutting edge of the church since we were founded. And being pioneers who came and settled where no one else had, well, you see how this cuts both ways. Pioneers who come and settle where other people were, and then we set up our shop in every county seat. There's an Episcopal church. And so there's some things we can unpack there, but that's not what we're here for today. So you come from birth into a period of formation. And this is where you're establishing your presence in the community. I imagine that happened instantaneously in Gates Mills because it's small, and so you probably had that quickly. You set up policies for how you're going to be a church together. Your numbers are growing, and you find yourself then getting to a period of health, where things are set, and you are founded and fully known in the community. Organizational elements and life all fit together. There's a vision for the ministry, and there's enough money to fund it. So that's when you're in a period of stability and health. And as I keep going around the cycle, I'm gonna just make a comment that you can do this cycle many times, as you all know, from being alive and humans. So it's not just a one-time move through the cycle. So you can be in a period of stability. And if you just keep on going and aren't responsive to the world around you or to changes that might happen or to your population of your congregation shifting, you can become stagnant and stale. And this is where your growth stalls. It doesn't decline, but you just aren't growing anymore. New people aren't coming. They might come, but they don't stay. Somebody says, hey, I have this great idea. Let's pass around needlepoint. And people are like, nah, we don't really want a new idea. So maybe you've experienced this. And so just things start to plateau in general. Things start to plateau, and you can kind of feel it in your spirit. And then if nothing happens, no intervention takes place, you move into a period of decline. Markers of this are that people start becoming less flexible. And that's the, like, we've always done it this way piece that you sometimes hear. There can be an intense focus on the small things, like the altar flowers suddenly become like the lightning rod of conflict in a congregation. And things start to feel out of control, and it's almost like in a board game arrow. People are like, who can we blame? Who can we blame? Often it's the priest, often it's a senior warden. Whoever kind of is that scapegoat figure of like, well, it's out of control, so it's John's fault. So, and the blame game starts. And if you don't intervene then you get into a period of disintegration, which is outright conflict. And this is where people are fighting with each other. I've been in a vestry meeting where someone threw a pen, and that was not a good night. People have a sense of hopelessness, that it's just not going to get better. It's not going to get better from here, and you feel stuck. And at this point, internal leaders can no longer affect change. This is a really hard place to get, and it's easy in some ways to know you're there, because all the things you've done in the past to make something better don't work anymore. And if you don't do anything there, then you enter into a period of death, which might be a closure of a church or an ending of a program or a ministry. So that's the cycle with no interventions that you might walk through. As I say this, it's important to name that we are teaching this in a Christian context, and death is not something that we fear. That's a whole part of this agreement that we have. That we believe in resurrection, we believe in life that's changed, not ended, as we say in our burial liturgy. And so even if you get here, this is not, even if it feels like or the world tells you it's a failure, it's not. God can still work with this. But I mentioned interventions that you can do. And so they all focus on this formation piece, which is getting really clear about why you're here. That was what your founders were clear on when they were here and got themselves organized. They said, this is who we're called to be in Gates Mills. And this is who our neighbors are and how we want to be in relationship with them. And it's a clarity of identity. And so when you're healthy as a congregation, you're always going back to those questions of who are we, how is this working, and that's ongoing renewal. So that's an ongoing renewal process that might look like a mutual ministry review. I don't know if you've ever done that in this parish. That's one structure we have for it. It can look like in your stewardship campaign, if you return to the essentials of who you are and like spark that excitement for people. A lot of good leaders automatically do this, and you aren't really even aware of it. But they're taking, you have a vestry retreat, and you go back to these questions of that. And you're also willing to experiment and try new things and have it maybe not work. So if you get to a period of, you're a little bit farther along, and you're plateauing, like we talked about, you're stagnant and stale, you still do the ongoing renewal, but you have a little bit more you've got to do from there, and that's revitalization. So that experimentation I talked about, that increases here. You have to be more willing to put energy into making it different, because this is all about the energy it takes to get back to health. And what I like to say here is, we know this from being humans and bodies, that the less healthy you get, for whatever reason, the longer it takes you to get back to health. And that is so frustrating. And it takes a lot of grit and a lot of support. And that's how I like to put that in my mind, that it takes longer to get back. You might have to change things, try new things. This might look like, one way I see congregations do is changing the number of people on their vestry. So it's a smaller vestry to fit what they need, or trying different service times. If you get to a period of decline, this is where that blame game is starting. You are past these points as necessarily doing the trick, and you're in a period of redevelopment. So here, it takes more energy. You might have to make staffing shifts. That often happens at that period. You're really making changes. And you're beginning to, what's happening as you go back to that formation is you have to have a willingness to change your identity in some ways. Not like the core of who you are, but you might have to change how you've been in relationship to your neighbors, because it's not working. This is a period, we have a lot of congregations right here in our diocese. And a lot of it centers around, they can't afford their buildings, they can't afford the upkeep of their buildings. So they're talking about downsizing their buildings, renting. So St. Thomas Berea, not too far from here, they rented their whole sanctuary to a dance studio. And they've moved into their chapel, they have a bigger space. They moved into their chapel, and it's going great. Like, it was really hard. It took a lot of energy. The vestry was exhausted. And yet they redeveloped and have this monthly income stream and are worshiping a space that fits their size better. Another sign of redevelopment around us are congregations who are sharing clergy. So we have 2 congregations in Ashland and in Mansfield who have consolidated clergy resource. So they pay together for one full-time clergy. So that's an example. And then finally, disintegration. So this is where what I said, the internal leaders no longer have the ability to affect change because conflict is so high, hopelessness is so high, and that is where you need outside intervention. So that's often when vestries will call the bishop and call me and say, we need help. Like, we've done all the things we know, all this, and it's not working, and we're scared. And it might look like bringing in a consultant to work with them, or doing something that's changing their leadership and doing things that way. So that is the essential life cycle. And as congregations, it's natural to move through these. And when I teach this, it's also pointed out to me, and I agree, that external factors are huge here. So if you have a pandemic, that's going to inform where you are. If your geographic area is seeing lots of decline, that's part of the life cycle. But right now we're looking at it for St. Christopher's. So do you have any questions before I ask you to dot where you think you are? Any questions about that?
What's the difference between healthy and stability?
So healthy is where it's that practice, like I like to think of it as movement, where you're constantly looking and you're going back to questions of who you are, and so stability, there isn't a huge difference here, except I think the main difference is that you're continuing to go back and check in about, does this still feel right? If you're stable, you're less inclined, because you're like, it's working, we're good. And you don't ask those questions, and then you can tip into stagnant, stale. So for the sake of dots, I think if you feel like you're checking in and doing that ongoing evaluation, you'd be healthy. If you feel like you're not really doing that, you'd be more stable. Good way to do it. So I'm going to ask you to put a dot, or ask your neighbor to put your dot for you if you don't want to come up here, which is fine. I mean, no, mobility is real when you're in little narrow rows. You can put it anywhere on the cycle. So you could be here, you could be here. When I was at St. Thomas Berea, somebody put it here, which was so sweet. And it was this little like 5-year-old girl. It felt so like prophetic in some ways, but it was just literally where she could reach. Anyway, but it was a good story. So come and put your dots where you think you are. There's no significance to your colors. It's just different colors. And then we're gonna talk about what you see. So come on up in the chaos of clustering. I'm gonna push it back to you a little bit. More data from people. The people who interpret that are the ones who gave it to you. And so we're gonna interpret this data together. And it's mostly gonna be you. So what I like to do to start is to do a little bit of a blob of where the center of things looks to be for a visual. And then you can have, you see that we're all kind of part of it. And there. So, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay. What do you see? What do you see here?
Yeah,
Yeah, I see here that as far as people who've been interpreting this, that they're slanted towards the top.
Yeah.
And this, to me, proves that a lot of the people who are attending the meeting are basically people who have been attached somehow to St. Christopher's.
Yeah. So that's a good point of, it is a statement about who is here, which always the thing to ask is who is not here, who's not in the room, and why aren't they in the room? It leads to a really good question. So what you interpret from this is that these are people who, it's skewed a bit to the people who would show up and also have been around. That's what I'm hearing you say, who have been around and have seen the place, which is what I would expect for today. What else? Did you have a hand? No. What else do you observe about this?
I'm thrilled that we're not in the decline and the descent.
Yeah.
Look, we're healthy and we're stable and we're, I mean, it's great.
I agree, Becky, and it's sort of like the sermon. This is a moment of joy. I will say, I haven't counted how many times I've done this, but a lot. You are the healthiest congregation I have seen. And that's just why I'm excited to come see you. Not that I will not that I will try to see you. I will come back, but it feels like you are here. And well, Kitty, I want to invite you to say what you were saying about stability.
I mean, I'm thrilled to see all of this, I really am, but there's something about stability we have to be wary about a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't want to get too comfortable here. And whatever it takes, if it takes, here I'm speaking, at the search committee, which is a huge responsibility, but I have other people helping me, it's just not my decision. So I fall back on that, but we have, I've been here over 50 years, and we have had times where we've been in all of those areas, and I don't need to tell any of you that. But healthy is, to me, that's the best. Or formation, but formation can be uncomfortable too.
Oh yeah.
Healthy is usually comfortable, but stability is like, okay, we got this.
Yeah.
We're okay. But I think you have to just be aware, or if you've got anything that's sort of negative, and if you can turn it around.
I think it's like during stability, if you're like, hey, we're good, stagnant can sneak up on you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing what Katie's saying. It's like, oh, it came. And I think going back to using our own lives as examples, if you think about if you have been blessed to have periods of stability in your life, not everybody gets that, then you can be surprised when you're like, oh, I'm not happy in this marriage, or whatever the thing is that happens for people, or like, I don't like my job, or I don't like where I live. And that can happen if you're not doing that continual reflection with yourself and the people around you. Brian, you had a hand up.
Well, I was gonna say that, you know, kind of the outliers, this looks like a very definitive statement with that blue dot for the person who felt that way, it's stagnant, stale.
Oh, that one.
And so when I look at this, I say, yeah, we're absolutely in the healthy and stable area. But to what else, you know, we're looking at is, I think that's kind of a caution that says,
Yes,
look,
red
this
flag.
really is an opportunity to
Red
make sure we
flag.
don't go further down that road.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Lots. This is great. Yes.
I don't know how many people are part of the entire congregation. So if there's about 70, 80 people
Yeah.
here, and there's selection bias, because
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
70, 80 people
You're
here,
saying, yeah.
how many people are not? Like,
Yeah.
is it 420 are not here? And are they not here because they would see us on the far right of us?
Yeah, so, and that's a great question of, and that's the period of the search you're in, is the time to ask those questions. And that's why there's tools like surveys, which have some limited use sometimes, but can be a tool, or you can do, another effective thing is to do listening sessions or small cohort gatherings, like meet with the people that joined in the past 10 years, or meet with the people with young families. And you can ask questions about, we had this parish meeting, this is what we talked about, what are your thoughts, like to engage. You do have to do some work when you're in this a period like this to see where other people might put you. I do think this is a good sample size. Like this isn't just this isn't just a search committee or just the vestry. So I think you can rest in this, and I think your points are great. Yeah.
I feel with how engaged the community is, like the church community, that helps a lot with how healthy and stable it is,
Yeah.
but we also need to bring in some more youth.
Yeah.
Like me personally,
Yeah.
there aren't as many people around
Yeah.
my age that go to church here. So I feel like that would provide more help to the church and would bring it closer to healthy than to stability and even stagnation.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that openness to, that is such a metric of health, is the openness to new people and the openness to young people can be a real, and you hear that a lot. Congregations want that, and I thank you for that. It's very good.
so if we have a priest who's coming to look at it, is he asked about just exactly where all those dots are? And does he come in saying, well, gee, I need to come in and introduce a lot of new things? Or do
Yeah.
I need to come in and really kind of go along with the process, but
Yeah.
make sure that we're constantly refreshing ourselves?
So that's such a great question and it's about the kind of priest that you would call from this. And that is exactly the reason that I do this with congregations in transition, because it tells you the kinds of qualities of a leader that you need at this time. If you guys had said you were here, we would be looking for a priest that has a proven ability to start new things, to do really innovative ways of being church and kind of tried some risky things and made it work. We would need that kind of priest. And this matches what I was thinking you all need, which is not just a maintainer, but you need someone who has an ability to see the gifts of the group, to see that there's energy here, there is energy in health and stability, and then to help you all do this. Not this. Like, you don't need that right now. I mean, you can, but you don't necessarily need an overhaul of who you are as a parish, which I think is what it feels like. But you do need someone who's going to ask the questions about, okay, who's not in the room? What's working? What isn't working as well as it used to work? And who's skilled in that kind of ongoing review and reflection. But not somebody who's gonna, and this is always so cautious, which is interesting, because you don't want to call a priest and say, we're perfect how we are and you don't need to change us. You don't want that.
No, you're not.
But so this is an asset. I mean, this is a selling point for a kind of priest that wants to come and do a church in a way that's working for a church and make it better and keep making it and keep refining it and keep finding faithfulness. This is a moment we're not going to get into this, it's just the next step of this, that I often use with congregations if we have more time together. These are the formation questions. So this is that thing I was talking about, how you go back and do that evaluation and review. This is what you could do if you did like listening sessions, is you could base things off of this. Or vestries can do vestry retreats with this, or search committees can use this to do profiles. There's lots of uses, but who are we? What are we called by God to do? Who are our neighbors, and how are we called to be in relationship with them as our neighbors? Those are the core questions of identity and formation as connected with God. And they're the questions that the search committee will need to be able to speak to about this is who we are, and this is why we're here, and this is who our neighbors are, and this is who's not in the room, who we'd like to be in the room. And so that's one way. And these are the kinds of questions that everybody's exploring. But if you're in redevelopment, you're exploring it in a slightly different way because you have to have more of an eye towards change and new identity. There were other hands up yeah, Leslie?
I am actually impressed that we're so much in the healthy to stable,
Yeah.
considering we don't have a minister.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
such a life-altering,
Yeah.
especially as Mother Ann was,
Right.
so important to all of us. And I think that says a lot about our leadership,
Yeah.
and that we have
Yeah.
Lydia, that does really good
Yeah.
to do, and Father Richard makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But, counting when we usher, we really haven't fallen off that much, I don't think, in the number of people that come. And there are some that aren't here today that I can think of that normally are here, and for whatever reason, they're just
Right.
not here today. But
Yeah.
we really have been, I think, pretty stable in our numbers since she left, so.
And we're growing.
Yeah,
We have new members.
Yeah.
Or new people that are visiting, they may be new members.
Right, but new faces.
Yeah.
Another metric that proves that you are right. John first. And then over here.
As the church videographer, we get on average 30 to 40 and sometimes higher views of our Sunday services. Our distribution list is 170 people. Some of those people live far away. Some of those people are snowbirds in the wintertime. We all know that. But I don't think that the people that are looking at the YouTube video of today's service are people that went to today's service.
Right.
It is people that don't get here, but still have a relationship with this parish. And we have a lot of people that are in that kind of a relationship that we can't forget. They may not be here physically, but they're spiritually with us because I know when they view the videos. And at the bottom of every announcement, when I send out those 170 with the YouTube links and everything, I say at the bottom, if you wish to be removed from this distribution list, please reply to me. In 4 years, I've had 2 people ask to be removed because they were moving. So, I mean, there's a lot of other people associated with this parish, and we cannot forget those people too.
Thank you. That is ministry.
My wife is the junior warden, so 24/7 I hear what's going on. With the vestry, with the church, all the people involved. And I'm incredibly impressed. I would have put my dot across that top.
Yeah.
Except for one thing. Growing up as a kid, I was in a church that was vibrant. It's gone today. What happened is it got old. And the neighborhood that it was in declined. But the big thing that made that church so vibrant was the youth. It was incredibly, I aligned with him over there. And I think as a church, what I see is fabulous. But it makes me very nervous with no Sunday school, kids not around, no vacation Bible school. So I think as a organization going forward, we need to think about what we can do to draw youth in. There's a good question over there, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I would second that. As you guys know, I have 2 little girls who come quite a bit to the 10:15 service, and I did bring up even a Christmas cadre this year, right? And it just, we couldn't do one. I understand the circumstances without Mother Ann, we chose not to. But Sunday school is a good point. I mean, I grew up Catholic, so I had PSR and Bible study and everything along those lines. My kids aren't necessarily getting that, but they're excited to come to church, believe it or not. Even If it's just to play, which is currently what it is their excitement, and I do bring them in for receiving the body and blood of Christ, and they enjoy that part too. But I do agree, it'd be nice to get younger families here, some way, somehow. I don't have the answers, but just a second.
And I know that one of the things Mother Ann was doing was, how many people got married here with Mother Ann? Do we have anybody here that got married? You did, so you're a perfect example. That Mother Ann would have the people who got married here attend. Like, and it was like, you're gonna come now, and you're gonna bring her, and then you have kids, as we say, if like God wills it. And then you bring your kids. And that's a very simple thing, but it was effective that Mother Ann was doing, that you can do. I'm just writing some takeaways for ongoing reflection for you all, and I should have done this along the way. So that, yay for health and stability, risks of stability, stagnancy can sneak up on you, in Becky's words. I'm gonna just say, need more youth.
I think if we have a minister that either has a family or thinking about a family or has teenagers or even grandchildren, yes, I think that would be a big plus.
I think that topic is something we can use this cycle to figure out how we can increase kids. I really believe, I love this cycle thing, and we have over the past, just not so we don't sound negative, there have been more younger families coming in. Yeah. We do have a godly play program, but just not enough people that come on a regular basis to do that, kids-wise, so.
Yeah, you're not, I think, as far away from that reality as it might seem, based on what I have seen and heard about you, and what I see from other churches. So, hard work to be done. But I think you have, and there are families around Gates Mills and Sugar Falls, and they're there. So there's some churches that they're just not even around. Like, so what are you gonna do then? But that's not you.
I don't know if we do this, but we rely so much on the people who contribute to the church now, and to avoid the stagnation in the future. I mean, I don't know if we've ever considered some sort of succession plan or long-term planning to see how we're gonna replace those important individuals who contribute so much right now.
Yeah, that's such a great question.
Well, and we have a new minister coming in, so that might be the time to do it.
Right. So that long-term planning, both from a leadership standpoint and a financial standpoint, is so important. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is some of the work that you have the energy to do when you're stable. If you're in decline, you are just trying to keep the lights on and like not argue with each other, and you're not like, okay, now let's talk about planned giving. You're not as equipped to do that as you are, but that is one of the tasks of stability. So thank you for saying that.
I have one thought.
Yeah.
Always keep present in mind, food for thought is asking the question, who is our neighbor?
Yeah. Thank you, Dick and Lydia.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other takeaways that you all want to capture for yourselves? I'm going to leave all this with you after I take photos. Anything else you want to capture? This has been such good conversation. Yeah.
One of the words I just jotted down a note is like, where does stewardship play in this? And I think some of the questions around from congregation or even financial, and what I see being a newer member to the congregation, which I absolutely love, is this beautiful mix of the old and the new. And I think there's a level of like stewardship with those folks that have been here for so long that I know they want to see this congregation thriving, and I think that's what I feel when I'm part of it, right? And I feel like I'm on the other side, where even being asked to serve on the committee was a massive sign for me that there's such a willingness and want to, I think that energy I felt from Mother Ann too, like that being a steward of the church, wanting it to live into like the next generation. And I think what's really cool about what I feel about what we have here is that from both sides, so broad word, but I think it's
Yeah.
also one that I feel we have the ability, both new and people that have been here a while, to contribute to that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I see that connected with that opportunity for future planning. And that's one of the things we ask people, like if you have only one person trained to be a treasurer and no one else who could even potentially do it, that's a risk, and that's a part of stewardship too, of making sure your people are cross-trained and you're raising up the next generation of altar guild leaders and all those different acts of the church in addition to the money pieces.
You know, I just want to say how grateful I am for the people here that volunteer constantly. Without that, we don't have fellowship, we don't know each other. And if you're at all prone to help with a program or an event or something, join in. You'll find it's fun. You know, they're good people and we're all working towards some same goal. So that I'm so grateful for the people in the community.
Yeah, thank you. In the back.
In change management, the WIFM, what's in it for me, in this case, what's in it for us, is an important kind of thread to keep in mind, because the the process involves a lot of learning, but the benefits are what help sell people on change. So sometimes you have to take a step back, look at the different audiences of the parish, and there are many, and then translate those into meaningful terms for each audience, just as we go through the process, especially when it gets closer to choice time.
Yeah, thank you. And your mention of change management is an opportunity for me to one last time plug the College for Congregational Development, because there's whole sections on how to manage change in congregations. And I really wish I had it like a long time ago, because there were ways that I've managed change in my own leadership that I would have done differently had I had the models and lenses. So that's another, that's one of the very things the college talks about. Becky, you had
I'm trying to share my hopefulness, because I really do believe Mother Ann, I think, brought our congregation as far as she could. And I think it's not a mistake that she left, and I think we are going to make through this process, and we're going to be better for it. And yes, there are times when, man, you get so frustrated and like, why aren't they doing this? And why aren't they doing that? And why is it taking so long? And I just believe we're on the right track, and I just have to have faith that we are going to get there. And my favorite piece of scripture is in the fullness of time, because it doesn't put a timetable on it, like okay, by March we'll be here. It's in the fullness of time we will get to where we want to be. And I just implored everybody to please keep that in mind and stay as positive as you can. If you're having a bad day, help somebody else. That'll help you.
And thank you. And I think that's a great optimistic note for us to end on. And one of the reasons that I like to do this with congregations, you all have the gift of when you do feel, when you have some despair and feels like things aren't going as well, remember that this is where you all think you are, and this is how it looks by other metrics that you are. And it's related to what I was saying in my sermon, and partly why I felt called to preach that to you guys today, because there is so much abundance in what you have and what is at St. Christopher's, and so much possibility. And best to direct your attention to those things, like to think on those things that are good. And not to rest on your laurels and not be looking for ways for renewal. But as you go through what is a bit of a long haul of transition, to at times rest in the comfort of that you are stable. And that is because you've done really hard things to make it so. That stability and health, especially in the church today, doesn't just happen anymore, like ever. So the fact that you are here means that that God is good and that you've worked hard. So, last comments?
Is there a way, though they haven't been here and heard all the intricacies of the life cycle, that we could have this stay up so people who weren't here have a chance to put their...
Definitely. I'll leave some extra dots with you, and you guys can do whatever you want. Some vestries and churches like to put these away. So just deciding, like, can we keep this up?
John, is this something you can share online like you share the services?
Pardon me?
Is this whole conversation we've had, that's something you could send out to the people that were here?
I will send that out today.
Great.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming
Yeah.
and spending this time with us.
I want to take a picture of you, you all.
I took a picture from the back side.
What is it?
I took a picture of the back side.
Oh, great,
So
great,
they can
great.
see everybody, but.
So if